quick context, this was recorded March 28th and 29th, so a couple weeks ago at my live event, SaaSopen.com. We had 1,000 software CEOs there. If you missed it, we hope to see you at the next one, September 5th and 6th in New York City, SaaSopen.com. But for now, let's jump into the recording.
To give a bit of context of what we've been trying to achieve, so we started in 2011 as an organization. We've been going fairly slow up until 18, 19, building the product carefully, trying to shape it, to serve the client that we want to serve. I'll just cover this in a sec. And then from 2021 started to accelerate, and now we really see the acceleration, so that's in revenue. But of course, to sustain that acceleration, and we are focusing on the enterprise B2B space. We were more long tail historically, but now we focus more on the enterprise B2B. We had also to recruit quite some staff. So that's part of the challenges that we were facing, how to organize this properly and to continue to manage the engagement of the team and manage the proper throughput of the organization. With Cleeng, very briefly, so Cleeng, we specialized in subscriber retention for video platforms. We work with the likes of, you see some of the clients here. Our largest client is actually the NFL in the US. So you guys here, I'm sure you know. Some are in the telco industry. Some are more like traditional broadcasters. So we help sell video subscriptions. We are kind of CRM platform for video subscription, but what we do. We manage about 35 million accounts, $500 million in gross billing. So we became quite sizable nowadays. And so what are some of these key learnings? And I'm sure you've been hearing some of these learnings in the past day, in the past few hours. Some people are repeating kind of the same, but there are also a few nuances. So I was happy that I could share maybe things that are a bit different. So one thing, and it's often a dilemma, especially with investors. Are there investors in that group here? Okay, there's a few investors. So investors, especially in the early days, we always look at what's your time, what's your time, what's your SAM, and you need to expand very fast, and it needs to be sufficiently large, otherwise it's not worth investing. So you have the tendency quite quickly to go maybe a bit too far on what you can target. It's easy to stretch software, but actually it's hard to stretch the sales and to stretch the experience and the marketing and this type of activities. So one thing I think that we've been doing pretty well is to continue to focus very much on our vertical, so the media and entertainment vertical, and not to try other verticals. Often we speak about gaming, for example. It's very similar. At the end, it's a subscription type of business. We speak about some form of IoT that would be also fairly similar. But we really refrain from going there, and we double down on the vertical that we are in, and I think it was a very good choice. The second important learning is adapting your pricing policy. If there's one thing that we've learned over the years is that pricing is never exactly right. We started as a long tail platform. We used to sell licenses at €99 a month. That's how we really started 10 years ago. And then we started to charge for certain components. So in our case, we charge per user here. So on top of the license, you would say, okay, how many subscribers do you have? And then you pay a small fee per subscriber. That's the only metric that we use. We use a tiered model. So you commit at a certain level, and then you have various tiers. The big benefit of this is that you don't need to renegotiate a contract if your client is overperforming. This is always a huge amount of time and a bit of frustration also for the client, because he's overperforming. And now he's saying, oh, but I'm paying too much. Let's say you've committed at 100,000 and you achieve 200,000. So of course you want to recalibrate your fees accordingly. But if you haven't embedded this in your contract, you need to renegotiate the contract. If you work on a tiering base, then it's way easier. You just get to the next tier, and then you don't need to renegotiate anything. Market focus, of course. Now we are enterprise sales. We are really like tier one. And to my surprise, we can continue to claim larger fees for our clients. So even though we work still on a per user basis, since we go after clients with potentially millions of users, you end up with an ARR of 1 million or more with certain clients. And of course, when you start to charge 1 million per year as software, you feel like, wow, holy shit, we make it. You have to adapt your strategy. I'm sure, well, some of you guys may be familiar with, so loss leader, you become extremely aggressive. Scheming, you try to get the most out of all of this. Scorch is that you feel like, okay, I'm going to be aggressive for a certain time until I penetrate the market, get market share, and then I will re-increase it. Or premium, which is more the positioning that we have today. You feel, okay, I have high margin, I'll try to maintain them while it lasts, and then might drop later. And then some other considerations. So I've been sharing a few parameters related to pricing, but I really feel that pricing is important, that you constantly optimize it for the target group of users that you want to go after. And it was definitely a key learning from selling 200K of ACV to $1 million plus of ACV. Of course, it's a very different type of pricing. The third element that was a big learning, and it's been a learning, I think, for the past 10 years, to be honest. We always neglected a little bit the customer success aspect and the retention aspect. We tend to always chase the new clients, and you organize yourself. You spend a lot of effort about acquisition and growth strategies of marketing. You invest in customer success, but you may not invest at the same level of attention as you would do for the acquisition part. But you quickly realize that once you get at 5 to 10 million of revenue, I mean, if you have a leaky bucket, I love this image of the leaky bucket. If you sign 5 million a year, but you lose like 2 or 3 every year, I mean, there's no way you can get to 10, 15, or 20 million. So very important to invest in customer success, to structure well that team. It's maybe the most complex. I've learned that it's maybe the most complex role in an organization. Why is it the most complex role? Because I assimilate that a good account manager is like a CEO. You need to know about sales. You need to be able to negotiate with a client. You need to know very well your product, because your client is asking, okay, but how do I use this product? How do I generate the right value from it? You may need to be able to answer some technical questions from these clients once in a while. And you need to, sell properly, the value propositions, marketing, and so on. So very difficult to develop the right profiles there. So start early, in my view, to get the right guys. It's certainly one area where we've been doing good from a net dollar retention. We are 120, 130%. But from a staffing standpoint, we still have high rotation, and we still struggle a little bit to staff properly that organization. Surprisingly, especially after the point number 3, is that as we grew, we hired a specialist of customer success and customer retention coming from IBM. She's been doing this for very long. And about 2 years ago, we said, okay, now we need to become customer-centric. And you guys at Cleeng, you are not enough customer-centric. You are product-centric. You are, to some extent, financial-centric and this type of things, but you are not sufficiently customer-centric. Well, guess what? By becoming customer-centric, we were moving, to my liking at least, way too much as a solution integrator, system integrator type of company. You start to get the account management team coming to you and say, hey, yeah, but this client is really looking for that service, or they are looking for that kind of extension. It's not exactly what we want. But if we don't do this, we may lose them. So it's very important you start to develop it. And then you are like torn in between to feel like, what shall we do? Shall we really pay attention to everything that the client is asking for? Or do we keep our course? Of course, we listen to their requirements, but we need to adapt a little bit, let's say, our messaging toward that client to say, sure, dear clients, let's work together. Let's figure out a solution. I love the Amazon Web Services work backward. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the work backward model. So basically, they ask clients, okay, what do you want us to do? So clients will say, well, I'd love to develop this and this and this. It's okay, why don't we work together on it? But they really say we develop together that service as part of our product stack. And that's literally how they started AWS, right? Some clients were coming to them saying, you have this mega infrastructure that you don't use, expect at Christmas and New Year. Why don't you start to sell it to us, in, I don't know, January and Feb? And that's how we started to develop AWS. So that was a good model. But it's something to continue to watch out, because especially when you have a client that is paying you $1 million a year, to my earlier point, when it starts to say, I need this and that, well, you kind of say, sure, we're going to develop it. So finding that right balance was definitely an important learning. A fifth important learning is don't listen to the financial sirens, and sorry for my broken English maybe and a French expression, but as you start to grow and accelerate properly, around that stage, we started to get a lot more interest from investors, including our own investors saying, oh yeah, but we should bring potentially some more companies to support that development. And luckily we said, no, okay, we want to stabilize first the organization. We want to continue to grow at a controlled pace so that we make sure that we don't do big mistakes, which is more or less what has been happening here. And actually the growth has been very good at that level. And because we've been controlling that pace, well, mechanically we became more profitable, and I feel that we reduced the amount of risk that we could have taken if we would have raised, let's say, 10 or 20 million of money at that time. At the same time, and last year I was presenting here as well. I don't know, I always end up in the finance, I'm not a financier, far from it, but okay, so be it. So last year, when we raised money, so we raised money in 2018, how we almost killed the company in 19. This was quite incredible because the investors came in 18. They say, hey guys, okay, go invest, and we don't give you money for you to keep that money at the bank. You need to spend it there. And then in 2020, when COVID started, I said, no, but actually, you guys have been spending like crazy. This is not the right thing to do. Okay, we need to basically fold the company. You know his stories? Okay. Wow, good. I'm happy I'm not alone in that case. So manage this carefully. Take your own decision as a founder. So I'm luckily still a founder. It's certainly more difficult if you've been an appointed CEO. But if you're a founder, I think you have massive leverage with the strategy of the organization. And yeah, do what you think is the best for the employees, best for your clients, and continue to grow in that model. One that I haven't heard so much actually today, while I'm a big believer in organization optimization. So just to put some context, before launching Cleeng now 13 years ago, I used to work in big organization. I was at Philips, I was at Apple for some time, Packard Bell in the computer space. And I think I made a bit of a specialization back then in terms of e-business team organization, and how do you scale an organization when you are growing like 50 and 100%. I think too often we assume that, let's say, we design an organization today, you tend to assume you design it for today. Well, actually today is already gone. If you grow 30, 40%, I mean, already tomorrow it's obsolete what you've been doing today. So you need to design an organization more for like 6 to 12 months, that's for sure. But also to say to your teams, guys, we may have spent 2 months, usually it's about a 2-month cycle to optimize like the tech team or the sales team. And then we feel like, okay, well, now we are done for the next 3-4 years. And then like 2 years later, or 2.5 years later, you come back and say, well, actually your organization does a bit of flaws, so we need to reorganize it a little bit, to fine-tune some elements. I really think that's super important because as you grow in terms of staff, you blurry the roles and responsibilities. So then you start to have a lot of people which are asking, yeah, but I used to do this, and now there's another guy that is doing kind of the same. Who takes the decisions? We start to have more people in meetings. So usually when you are a small team, you have like meetings with 3-4 people, and that's perfect. And when you grow the organization, you start to have meetings with like 8, 10, 12 people. You feel like, what? So it's really surprising. So once you get to that stage, it's a sign you need to reorganize. If the meeting goes too big, it's not because, okay, people just want to have more people in meeting, it's because the roles and responsibilities aren't clear. So you re-optimize a little bit your organization, you clarify the roles and responsibilities so to continue to achieve the right speed and throughput, not just at the function level, so like tech and marketing and sales, but more at the project level, which tends to be often, intertwined type of organization. You have a sales guy, a PM, a solution engineer, and a group of developers potentially. So it's very important that they are properly integrated together. Seven is, it might be something that we repeat often, but it's been certainly where I've been spending the most time in the last 24 months. I was really scared that as we grow and to put things in perspective between a bit of staff that is leaving and the new staff that came in, you saw the graph earlier, so now we are 130 people, about 50% of the organization is new in the last 12, 18 months. 12, 14 months. So one big risk I see is, of course, especially when you bring some new managers, we have a new CFO, new head of customer success, new COO. They all bring, these are smart people, these are senior people, they are at the management level with you. So they themselves bring, their own learnings and experience, and they try to shift or adapt, some of your culture, which has some good, of course, sides, but you also don't want to lose what has been, let's say, the historical culture of your organization. So these 4 pillars here, we built them in 2013, 14, so really 10 years ago, very much at the very beginning of the organization. We were trying to figure out, okay, but what makes us stand out? How do we sell to a new employee who we are? And these are main, let's say, pillars of the culture. And I've been spending a hell of a time to make sure that we do maintain that culture of, these various values, so that we can continue to grow to the next stage and avoid further mistakes. Eight is a little bit what we are doing here. It's the only conference I do in the year, but I love the opportunity to meet with more CEOs and CFOs and COOs, guys who went through the similar struggles as I did, because it's been a long and painful journey in many dimensions. Learn from other industries also. I was speaking about pricing. I was speaking about market focus. Large part of the reorganization on pricing is when we signed Looker, when we signed Salesforce. You really go deep as a CEO to understand, okay, but why Salesforce is billing like this? Why Looker is billing like this? Why AWS is billing like this? And then you try to think, okay, what's the correlation between how we do it to how I do it, and where are the gaps? If it succeeded, if they succeeded in that domain, there's certainly ways that also I can learn quite a bit from them. So learn from others, very important, but I guess that's why we are all here together. The 9 is, and that's why I didn't follow the template sent by SaaS Open, and I hope nobody will report me, is avoid boredom. One thing that we see also a little bit related to the culture is that when you move from like 50, 60 people that were there at the beginning of the organization, so we really went into battle together. We were in the trenches and, we were fighting and da-da-da. And then you have a bunch of people which are coming in, and then it become a bit more corporate, like, okay, follow the processes. And I'm the first one to advocate for that, right? So that's a bit of the dilemma. You advocate to follow standards. And at the same time, you say, no, but guys, okay, go outside. And if you need to spend some money to invite some clients, okay, go for it. Don't ask permission for like free papers to be signed. So very important to, I think, resist the temptation of a form of bureaucratic model as you grow. And again, 100 employees is not like Microsoft size, but it already starts to weigh on our capacity to decide effectively. And that's about it. It's past 20 minutes. I've been sharing in 9 key learnings, but I'm happy to take also a few questions if you guys have.
Yeah, thanks, Jill. Give Jill a hand, please. What quick question before we bring Jeff on stage. Any questions? Good. Or grab Jill after. All right, thanks, Jill. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey folks, if we haven't met yet, my name is Nathan Latka. I launched and sold my first software company back in 2015 and went on to write a book about it, which you guys made a Wall Street Journal bestseller, purchasing over 30,000 copies. Thank you so much for that. After the book, I launched this show and went on to create FounderPath.com. I raised a large fund to do non-dilutive deals with B2B software founders. So far, we've invested in over 400 software founders, totaling $150 million. Here in 2024, we're doing 3 to 4 new deals per week. So if you're looking for capital and don't want to give up equity, go sign up at FounderPath.com for free to get your offer.